Like, subscribe, comment, show what your opinion is. Let me know if you like what you've seen. And I thank you for your support. Like, subscribe, comment, show what your opinion is. Let me know if you like what you've seen. And I thank you for your support. So, yesterday I covered anti-Zionism, and I had some interesting comments that were said to me, and one of them I found hilarious and I have to bring up. Dude brought up the fact that here I was going against the anti-Zionist and defending Israel, and my name was Paul. I have to admit that was kind of funny even to me. But that being said, I have a topic today that, in all honesty, I will be completely honest with you. I don't know where I fully stand on this issue. Now, you may be wondering, well, of course you stand against the felons who are getting their gun rights back. Yeah, partially. But I'm also of the mind that we have too many laws in this country that make no sense whatsoever. They're just a way to get people into jail, into a system that uses them for labor. I'm also under the impression that there are certain crimes that people get convicted of that they shouldn't be convicted of. Take a look at anybody that defends their family, their home, or themselves. Yes, that should be considered self-defense if it's defending yourself or someone, a friend or family. But they have sent people to jail for defending their kids. No joke whatsoever, they've done it. Defending yourself, they've sent people to jail. Why? Because they didn't. They want the convictions. They think this makes them look good. It just makes them look like they want to control everybody's life. So, Second Amendment rights being restored to felons, I'm torn on right now. I will admit it. I don't have a complete picture as of yet, and I am still thinking on the matter, but I thought, hey, why don't I let my viewers decide what they want to think about this? Let's start with how I came across this subject. When I am working on certain things, I will scroll through YouTube shorts. For some reason, at one point, I started getting in my feed, a dude who was a convicted felon, all tatted up, and he talks about his dislike of people that harm children in certain ways. Because this goes out on YouTube, I'm not going to bring it up because that might offend certain people, and you know how offending people is. But I agree with this dude on what he thinks felons should do to those, what he calls chomos, in prison. I'm 100% in agreement. There is a use for violent felons. And yes, what they do to those that do things to children, yes, I'm 100% in agreement with. But he posted a video where they were talking about this, where Second Amendment rights were possibly going to get restored. So I did a little looking it up, and I came across an article. This is from Chicago. November 15th, 2023, ABC 7. Chicago judge recently ruled in the case of a felon convicted multiple times that statute barring felons from possessing handguns is unconstitutional. The federal case was thrown out by U.S. District Judge Robert Gettleman earlier this month. The felon was facing mandatory minimum of 15-year sentence if convicted of being in possession of a firearm. Federal law prohibiting the possession of firearms by convicted felons goes back to the 1930s, and in 1961 it was broadened to a blanket lifetime ban on firearm possession for all convicted felons. carjackings and shootings. These are just demonized youth. These are the people that feel that they have a free hand to do whatever they want without fear of repercussions. The judge's ruling cites the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association Incorporated versus Bruin. In his ruling, Gettleman said Bruin requires courts to inquire as to whether a statute imposes a comparable burden on the right to bear arms as defined by the Second Amendment, as well as a distinctly similar or relevantly similar historical analog from the founding era. The judge concluded the law imposes a far greater burden on this right to keep and bear arms than the historical categorical exclusions from the people's Second Amendment right. The government has not demonstrated why the modern ubiquity of gun violence and the heightened lethality of today's firearm technology compared to the founding justify a different result. Okay, this goes beyond even the Illinois State Rifle Association. Okay, so that was that. And so I looked up New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, holding New York's proper cause requirement for obtaining a unrestricted license to carry a concealed firearm violates the 14th Amendment in that it prevents law-abiding citizens with ordinary self-defense needs from exercising their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Judgment reversed and remanded 6-3 in an opinion by Justice Thomas on June 23, 2022. Justice Alito filed a concurring opinion. Justice Kavanaugh filed a concurring opinion in which Chief Justice Roberts joined. Justice Barrett filed a concurring. Okay, that's just a whole bunch of, hey, let's file a whole bunch of weird stuff. Okay, But 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that New York's law was unconstitutional and the ability to carry a pistol in public was a constitutional right guaranteed by the Second Amendment. The court ruled that states are allowed to enforce shall issue permitting where applicants for concealed carry permits must satisfy certain objective criteria such as passing a background check, but that may issue systems that use arbitrary evaluations of need made by local authorities are unconstitutional. In the wake of Bruin, several lawsuits involving federal and state gun regulations have been filed, their plaintiffs arguing that the judiciary should evaluate the regulation not in consideration of the public good, but in light of the historic tradition of firearm regulation. So, basically, yet again, the Supreme Court upholds the Second Amendment, whereas places like New York City and just New York in general continue to try to keep people from having their Second Amendment rights. And there have been, within months of the ruling of Bruin, several existing new lawsuit challenging federal and state firearms regulations pressed on the language of historic tradition of firearm regulation. Okay. Basically, this hurt a lot of the anti-Second Amendment states. But let's take a look at the different states. I've got 3 states here that we're going to look at on how they handle restoration of Second Amendment rights. Okay, let's start with Virginia. Virginia, I've just got a simple thing here. Are your rights restored? Anyone convicted of felony in Virginia automatically loses their civil rights. The right to vote, serve on a jury, run for office, become a notary public, and carry a firearm. The Constitution of Virginia gives the governor the sole discretion to restore civil rights, not including firearm rights. Individuals seeking restoration of their civil rights are encouraged to contact the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office. To be eligible to apply for consideration for the restoration of civil rights, an individual must be free from any term of incarceration resulting from felony convictions. Individuals are encouraged to contact the Secretary of the Commonwealth and works with various state agencies to consider individuals who may be eligible to have their rights restored. So, if somebody wants to vote, become a notary public, serve on a jury, run for public office, or have their gun rights restored, they have to do these things. Okay, so that's the state of Virginia. Okay, so let's take a look at Tennessee now. Okay, this is from January 23rd, 2024. This is an AP News article. I'm going to read you from two different AP articles. The state's toughened voting rights restoration policy requires people convicted of a felony to get their gun rights restored before they can become eligible to cast a ballot again. Tennessee Elections Office said Tuesday, confirming a mandate that officials have been debating internally. Last summer, election officials interpreted the state Supreme Court ruling as requiring that all convicted felons applying for reinstated voting rights first get their full citizenship rights restored by a judge or show they were pardoned. Voting rights advocates have argued the legal interpretation is way off base. Okay, so we're talking in Tennessee that they want you to be able to vote if you've been a felon, that you've got to get your firearms rights back. Part of this came from a what was this? It was from a 2020 lawsuit. A gentleman by the name of Ernest Falls was convicted of a felony in '86 in Virginia, but was granted clemency in 2020, which restored his rights of citizenships, including the right to run for office, the right to serve on a jury, and the right to vote. Shortly after, Falls attempted to register to vote in Tennessee, where he has lived for several years, but was denied. According to the lawsuit, Falls' denial came after the state's abruptly reversed course in 2020 and began requiring residents who had out-of-state felony convictions to meet additional rules, which is gun rights, in that mix. So you've got Virginia, which is giving you the chance to get it back if you can get the Secretary of Commonwealth to work with you. So about 8.2% of the population of voting age. I disagree with this one. It says state's total voting population. 8.2, no. Or they're not voting. So they're not the state's total voting population. Which is 421,000 people aren't able to vote because of these felony convictions. There's some people are saying this is a disenfranchisement. Well, you committed a crime, okay, needs to be determined what the crime was, in my opinion. But so they're doing this, and they're now saying that you have to get your firearms rights restored, which in the state of Tennessee, that means working with different groups, but Tennessee's considered one of the more complex states to do this. Restoration in general, firearms rights may generally be regained by a pardoned judicial certificate of restoration under the Tennessee Code. However, only expungement restores rights where the offense involved violence or drug trafficking. Felony offenders convicted between July 86 and July 96 and not sentenced to penitentiary may regain firearm rights automatically by the Judicial Certificate of Restoration. Persons with federal or out-of-state convictions may also petition the circuit court for judicial restoration. Basically, a little complex, but you know, that's how a state like Tennessee goes. So let's take a look at a non-southern state. So let's go to Utah. A Utah woman convicted of a felony. This came from Deseret News. This came December 28, 2023. Utah woman convicted of a felony for trying to cash a fake check in 2008 has taken her fight to own a gun to the U.S. Supreme Court. Her attorney filed a petition for review with the High Court last week on this question. It's a 15-year-old nonviolent felony conviction for trying to cash a bad check. She had no history of violent behavior or other conduct that suggests she could not responsibly possess a firearm for self-defense, her lawyer wrote, and for more than 15 years she has been a law-abiding citizen. Okay, Vincent, a single mother with 2 advanced degrees who works as a licensed clinical social worker, wants to buy a gun to protect herself and go hunting and target shooting with her family. But the conviction for attempting to cash a fraudulent $498.12 check at a Salt Lake grocery store prohibits her from ever possessing a firearm. Okay, I'm a little confused. This was literally a federal conviction. Utah's changed its law since 2020 to allow certain felons to possess firearms after 7 years of good behavior. This woman, she had drug and alcohol problems. She went into treatment, graduated from drug court. She earned a behavioral science degree from Utah Valley University, followed by a master's in social work from the University of Utah. She opened a private practice in therapy and counseling. In 2018, she completed a master's degree in public administration at University of Utah. She is the founder and executive director of Utah Harm Reduction Coalition, a nonprofit that works to develop science-driven drug and criminal justice reform policies. She also started the first legal syringe exchange service in the state. So basically, here's a woman who turned her life around. For some reason, this was the whole thing happened in federal court for some reason for her in the check cashing. And she's wanting to get her gun rights back. And this is sparking off a debate. One justice's opinion, here's the same article, whether the Supreme Court takes Vincent's case remains to be seen, but the issue is of keen interest to Justice Amy Coney Barrett. In its dissenting opinion in a Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals case before she joined the High Court, Barrett concluded that only people convicted of dangerous felonies should lose their right to keep and bear arms. She traced the history of the Second Amendment and punishing of convicted felons to colonial times. History, she wrote, is consistent with common sense that legislatures have the power to prohibit dangerous people from possessing guns, but that power extends only to people who are dangerous. In some founding-era legislatures categorically disarmed groups whom they judged to be a threat to public safety, Barrett wrote, but neither the convention proposals nor the historical practices supports a legislative power to categorically disarm felons because of their status as felons. Okay, so that's Utah, and that's also hearing from Justice Amy Coney Barrett on this topic. So I covered 3 states and how they're handling gun right restoration for felons. I am not saying that I believe that all felons should have their gun rights restored. By no means am I saying that. Do I believe that we have a bad criminal justice system in this country? Yes, I do. I also believe that we have a nation that too often wants to punish people who make mistakes early on in life. People can correct their life. Now, some people have a problem being able to do that because of mental disorders or just their life situations, but yes, I believe that those who have not been convicted of violent crimes should have the chance to get their full citizenship rights taken back, especially if they have proven that, hey, it was a one time thing or they just were going through a bad time in life. That happens. But I'm not sure I want to go all out for violent felons. I don't think that murderers should be able to get their gun rights back unless, there was a good reason for them being a violent felon at the time. Um, and I say that, and I am, like I said earlier, somebody who has helped their family or went after somebody that went after their kid, something like that, sure. But I'm still not 100% certain about how all of this will work. I agree with Justice Barrett. This is a good way to start procedure for those who have been part of a system, have been fallen into a system that is more likely to use you for free labor than anything else. I also believe that our use of banning Second Amendment rights has gone beyond what our founding fathers wanted. It really has become a situation in which we need to examine all of our laws on a regular basis. Seriously. We have a situation in this country that laws have gone above and beyond where they should go anyway. And I don't believe that we need to constantly allow this situation to fester. And that's what it is. It's festering. And it's up to the people, not just what my opinion is. It's up to everybody's opinion because this is a country that is ruled by laws that are supposed to represent the people of this country, not just the oligarchs, not just certain elites, but it should represent the will of the people. I think that this is something that we should examine, and we should keep examining this. And I don't think that this is an issue that can be handled easily. But I thought that I would bring it to you, my listeners, because I thought that you might be interested in everything dealing with this. And I want you to form your own opinions. I want you to think about what some of y'all are going to have snap judgments. Some of y'all are going to think about it a little bit more. It's, that's the way of America. We have that right to do those things. So I want you to think about this. I want you to consider whether you think that it's time that we examine these laws. Especially if you take a look at that there are people that are getting convicted of felonies that common sense says, no, these people shouldn't have been convicted to begin with. But that's for y'all to decide. So I will let y'all think about this and I'll let y'all go. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.